Hi everyone, Michelle McClunan, a life navigator and astrologer, and I'm bringing you an update for the new moon, which is happening in a few days' time in the sign of Gemini. In South Africa, it's happening on the 18th of June, and in some parts of the world, it's prior to that on the 17th. In South Africa, it's 6:37 a.m., which is where the sun and the moon come together at the same degree of the sign of Gemini. Just a reminder for those of you who might not be familiar with this, new moons are always a time to plant new seeds. So as we approach a new moon, we're letting go of what we don't need. And on new moon, we start to plant new seeds for the next lunar cycle. So if you're watching this before the 18th, then this is a time to release, let go of, take out whatever you don't need, reduce the clutter, reduce the noise, clear out. You could see it almost like you're weeding a field or a piece of ground to plant new seeds. You need to actually take out the plants that you don't need, and you need to aerate the soil and maybe give it some water, let it stand a little bit, and then plant your seeds. The process of the waning moon is the letting go, and then the planting of the seeds on new moon. It's always a good idea to take some time out to write some new intentions for the month ahead. What would you like to bring in to your life in the month ahead? If we look at Gemini as a sign, Gemini is the sign of the twins. It's an air sign. There's a lot of air in this particular new moon alignment. Air is the sign of communication, rational thought, a lot of information coming and going, reading, communicating, listening, learning. There's a lot of information in the air, a lot of busyness in the air. Gemini is quite a busy sign. Gemini people generally like to network, they like to talk, they like to communicate. They don't like to be alone, they like to actually have some social contact with people around them, and it's quite a busy sign. They get things going, they get things working, and they sort things out quite quickly. It's a mutable air sign, which means it's quite fast moving, and it can be quite heady. Now Gemini as a sign ruling the twins, the twins are actually in mythology. The twins are represented by Castor and Pollux. And Castor was the mortal sun and Pollux was the immortal sun. And that's a very strong theme for this new moon, because not only have we got the new moon in Gemini, which is kind of all about, right, make the plans, get things done, think things through, write the lists, do all the things on the human level. Gemini is a human sign. It's one of the signs that is depicted by humans. So what do we need to do? There's quite a lot of rational thought and sort of trying to plan things and trying to make things happen in the world, in the mortal world. But this new moon is in a very close aspect. It's actually what we call in a square to the planet Neptune. And Neptune is in the sign of Pisces. Now, both of those signs are mutable signs. So this is a new moon which is quite full of change, and we need to be very flexible this new moon, because we might find that things that we plan don't quite go according to plan, and there might be a curveball that comes in, and we have to re-look at the whole thing and lean back, surrender, regroup, and look at it from a different angle. Now this is even more defined this new moon, because Neptune, to try and describe Neptune in the sign of Pisces, which it rules, is very watery. It's it's universal. So talking about the mortal and the immortal, if you look at this in simplistic terms, you could look at Gemini as the mortal side of us, the side of us that needs to pay the bills, plan where we're going to live, how we're going to survive, and have our sort of ducks in a row from a human perspective, where Neptune is the universal. It's the non-form. It's the divine. So when these two come into an alignment like this, there's almost a polarity, or there can be a conflict between the doing and the being, the kind of making it happen, making plans, and allowing something to unfold. So during a new moon like this, we might feel a bit unsure of ourselves. We might even feel a little bit confused. I think at the moment with the information that is coming through on social media and media of all kinds, it's quite confusing as we enter this time of cancel culture and all of those kinds of things, it's a little bit confusing as to what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a man? All those definitions seem to be quite unclear at the moment. So that's creating a little bit of confusion. And then just the amount of information that comes at us in any moment. What do you believe and what don't you believe? Neptune, on the sort of the lower vibration of Neptune, it can create confusion. It can create hypnosis. Just sort of believe what you read or believe what we tell you to believe. And this new moon is kind of highlighting that. So don't believe everything you read. Don't believe everything anybody tells you at this new moon. Rather, connect in with your own knowingness. And that is Neptune at its higher vibration. Neptune at its higher vibration says you are an immortal soul and you have access to full guidance at any time. Intuitively, you know what to do. The mind, the rational mind might tell you otherwise, because the rational mind's job is to give you the polarity, to say yes, no, right, wrong, black, white. Where Neptune, the energy of Neptune says we are all connected, we are all one, we are not separate. And in that place of non-duality, the answers come. So what I feel at this new moon is that if we look to the rational for answers, especially around this new moon, we might find ourselves coming up short. We might find ourselves getting even more concerned, even more confused, and even more stressed, because the answers might not be coming. So it's really a time to lean back a little bit, to surrender a little bit, and to allow the process to unfold, because we think that we know what's happening, but we don't, because we only see a little sliver of reality, very, very small. So what's happening in the bigger picture, we have no idea of. So what can we do? We can bring ourselves back to our truth, the truth of who we are. We can bring ourselves back to a quiet place in amongst the busyness. Yes, we all have to use our minds. We have to use our brains. They're very useful. But when it's overdone, when there's too much of it, that's when we need to step back and just be and allow something to unfold rather than forcing it to unfold. Neptune is the king of the ocean. So at a new moon like this, where you remember the sun and the moon are in a square to Neptune. So what happens with that, to try and explain it in non-astrology terms, is the air energy is kind of infused with this water energy. Now, when that happens, we can feel a bit sort of, we don't feel as busy as normal. We might not feel as motivated as normal. We might even feel a little bit slack, a little bit kind of, let's just be. Let's not really do anything, not a huge amount of ambition, just for a couple of days. So if that's the case, you might even not feel very well. You might need a bit of rest. We are experiencing huge rains in parts of South Africa. In the Western Cape, literally the streets in some places are rivers. It's taking down substations, which is meaning lack of electricity for hours and hours at a time. I think we were off yesterday for 9 hours, which can actually serve us, because what happens? During that time, we might not be able to access the media or the social media or our phones. And so what do? Maybe it's time to just lean back a little bit and be. And this friend of mine said she actually so enjoyed just reading her book with a little camping light, because she wouldn't usually do that. She would usually be looking for information, or maybe be online, looking for different things that she wanted to watch. And this was a time out, time to just be. So Neptune's energy is to surrender to what is, to be flexible with what is unfolding, as opposed to being rigid. And there's a lot of that mutable energy, that flexible energy. So it brings to mind the bamboo, to be like the bamboo. Be prepared to change. These are times of change. And you might think you have a plan, and then the plan just doesn't work out like that. So we need to be flexible and allow this energy to actually move through us. We're traversing times which we've never traversed before on our planet. And as the clouds of uncertainty surround us, what happens is it can actually bring us closer inside to our spiritual truth, closer inside to our soul's desires, closer inside to our humanity, to our connection with humans, with other humans, to be able to listen more. Gemini is the sign of communication. Are we listening? John and I did, my partner and I did a Facebook Live the other night where we spoke about, are we listening? What are we listening to? Are we listening to the noise outside, or are we listening to the truth? And how do we access the truth? We access the truth by going quiet and by taking some time to listen to possibly very subtle messages that might be coming through. So this is a new moon where you might actually have downloads of messages. Neptune is the planet that's aligned with guides and other realms. So if you find yourself in a state of confusion or concern, ask for help, ask for guidance, ask for a sign, ask for a symbol, and then just be open. If it appears, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. Just know that once you've asked, it will appear at some point. Maybe not in terms of our human timing, in terms of our ego's demands, but it will appear. So these are times where it's a subtle new moon, but there's a sort of a polarity. So on the one hand, we want to get things going, we want to get things moving, and on the other hand, there seem to be delays or confusion or a bit of fogginess or lots of water like we're experiencing. Water, obviously, in real terms is what we're experiencing here, which is just about flooding, which is also very often it brings you inside, it keeps you inside. Because you can't go out. You might not be able to travel on the road, or you might not be able to get out of your garage because the electricity is not working, or whatever it is. If you are in that situation, see if you can just immerse yourself in it, accept it. Neptune is connected with words like surrender, beingness, as opposed to doingness. Gemini is more doing. Neptune is being. So can we find a midway of being and doing from a place of being, rather than a place of extreme busyness in the head? So that's the way I see the energy of that part of the new moon. Now, the ruler of the new moon is Mercury, and Mercury is also in the sign of Gemini. So it's also very busy minds. And it's in what we call a square to Saturn. Saturn is in Pisces. Pisces is aligned with Neptune. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So again, we have the same theme. Mercury, mind-oriented, doing, busy, kind of quite heady, in a square to Saturn in Pisces, which says, slow down. The mind might not be so clear. The plans might not come to fruition. There might be a sense of being unsure, uncertain about what you're saying, about what you're listening to. So it's a similar theme. It can feel a little bit like a blocked energy if we're not actually familiar with it. But so again, if you feel blocked, then just come back to that place of being, because that's what these energies are really describing to us. The other thing that's happening is on the day of the new moon, Saturn is stationing retrograde, which means that it's been going forward through the sign of Pisces for the last few months. It entered the sign of Pisces in March for the first time in nearly 30 years. It's now moving through the sign of Pisces. It's got to 7 degrees, and now it's stationing, which kind of means when a planet stations, it feels like it stops and drills down. And so what does it drill down into? I'm going to describe that before it turns retrograde. And it goes retrograde all the way to November, where we'll actually be revisiting themes that we've been working on in the last few months. So whatever was happening in March, this might be a time now where you revisit those themes and look to see, what have I learned during the last few months? How have I grown in the last few months? What have I learned more importantly about my fears? Saturn is the teacher, and Saturn is often aligned with showing us where our blocks are and where our perceived inhibitions are, where our fears are. And so wherever Saturn is transiting, or what we call moving through your chart, would usually be where those fears would be coming up. So let's just say Saturn's going through your second house of finances. This would be a theme that happened 30 years ago, which is now re-happening, and it would probably bring up similar themes of possible fears around finances or around earnings or how you're going to make a living in the future. If it's, for example, going across your house of career, then maybe there are fears or blocks or doubts about your career. If it's going across your house, the house of the home, it might be that you are doing renovations or building a new house, and you're faced with those kinds of fears on that front, security fears around home. So Saturn is our great teacher. And when it drills down, when it's stationing to go retrograde, it sort of intensifies. At the same time as it's intensifying, it's showing us where our fears are and showing us too that those fears are not real. They are illusionary. So Saturn in Pisces is showing us the illusion. It's turning a light on in the illusion to show us that it's an illusion. And usually fears are illusions. You could use the acronym false evidence appearing real. So wherever you are feeling fear right now, whether you've had your chart done or not, you can ask yourself, where is the fear? What is my deepest fear? And it's not a bad thing to look at that, because only when we're able to actually look at our deepest fears can we move through them. Freedom is on the other side of fear. So when we look at the fear firmly in the face, it becomes less threatening because now we've already seen it. We've seen the fear. So what is the fear? What's the worst thing that could happen? And then realize that that's an illusion, because that's just a thought. And thoughts generally aren't true. So it's to acknowledge the fear, to accept that there is that fear, and to know that these are the times where we're actually moving through the illusion of fear into a place of truth. And so I see that that is the main theme of what we're moving through here. There's always a lot that we're going through at any one time, energetically and astrologically. Hopefully that's given you a little bit of a flashlight in the middle of the ocean of not knowing. I would say that to transit and to move through the next few weeks is in a state of surrender and allow yourself not to know. So you could say, I'm okay with not knowing in this moment because I don't know. So if you don't know, you don't know. There's no point in trying to know because you don't know. And if something is not coming out the way you wanted it to, well, it's not coming out the way you wanted it to. So can you accept that? Can you surrender to that? Can you surrender to the unknowing, to the changing of seasons, to the changing of times, to this very ever-changing world that we live in, and keep your center as this divine being that doesn't change? So it's the mortal and the immortal. Can you navigate the mortal and the immortal, the human side and the divine side? And that's the way we do that, is to recognize that we have a divine side, we have a divinity, and we also have a human side. So to see the human, but not to get stuck in the human, to actually navigate it from a place of presence and awareness. So it's aligning with our inner truth. It's taking one step at a time. As we can move through something, we move through something. I can do this right now. I'm going to do this right now. Right now, I can't do anything. The lights are out, can't go anywhere. I'm going to just be in this moment and not fight the fact that I'm just being. Actually enjoy being. Enjoy maybe reading a book or just sitting looking at a candle or looking at something beautiful or speaking to a loved one. Just enjoying that beingness, which is this is the sort of antidote to all of this very moving, very busy energy that's going on. I see this as a way of actually bringing it into balance, into harmony. The other thing is we have the planets Venus and Mars in quite a tight alignment in the beautiful sign of Leo. So it's a very good time to do something creative. You know, shine your light in a creative way. Do something that you haven't done. If you play music, get that guitar out of the cupboard, dust it off, and play some guitar. If you sculpt or paint or write poetry or write, do more of that. Play with a child. They'll take you into your child playful side. And this is what we're being encouraged to do, because this Leo energy will actually help us as well to actually move through the stickiness. So have some fun. Go out. Have some fun with some friends. Have some laughter. Have some social time maybe. Or create. Do something creative. And that should help you through it as well. I think it's a very positive new moon. It's definitely helping us to connect more at a soul level, at a heart level. Leo rules the heart. So this is encouraging us to connect with our heart. Keep coming back to this. Keep coming back to love. What would I do if I was love? What would my action be if I was love? If I was living as love? How would I behave in this relationship? Would I criticize, or would I just be more gentle and heart-based? Would I be able to see that the other person's moving through something as well? So this is about opening our hearts, not closing them. And there's a tendency at the moment for people to be closing because they're so confused and they might have lost a little bit of hope. So it's to keep that heart-based part of you intact, because that's what gets us through. And that's this ascension. That is what we're actually moving more into. Less in the head, more in the heart. Yes, we have a head. Yes, we have a rational mind. All good, but we can't live there. We've got to actually bring in the other. So it's to know that we are immortal, having a mortal experience. And that changes the perspective. Rather than just I am this human doing, I am a human being. I did draw a card from my favorite deck, which is the Divine Feminine by Megan Watterson. I'll leave a link below for that. It's a wonderful deck. And the card I drew was the White Buffalo Calf Woman. And guys, if you're watching this, it's applicable to you too. We each have a Divine Feminine and a Divine Masculine. These cards just happen to be connecting and speaking to the Divine Feminine, which is actually the way, is the balancing point as we move into this new earth. We need to balance the feminine because it's been very unbalanced. The masculine has been very powerful, and now the feminine side of us is coming more into being. So the White Buffalo Calf Woman is the prophetess of the sacred way, and her message is, my heart is a compass. The path of love is true abundance. So it's very aligned with what I've just said about Leo. So I'm not going to go into the whole history of her, but I'm going to just tell you what it says when you select this card. White Buffalo Calf Woman is a sacred reminder that we don't have to struggle to receive all that we have desired. When we join our heart's longing with action, we find that there's a sacred way to move through the world. This is so important right now, is that we move through the world in a sacred way, that we look at the sacred in everything we do, whether we're brushing our teeth, washing the dishes, or speaking to a person. Can we do it in a sacred way? This sacred way is a path of steady, quiet alignment between the heart's intention and our every step. So you can see how it's aligned with the energy of Gemini and Neptune. White Buffalo Calf Woman is an omen of hope that all will be provided for us when we approach each situation with love. And you could say that love, you could put some more words in there. Accepting what is, allowing what is to be, and appreciating what is arising. You could put those words in instead of love. What she wants us to focus on is the intention behind an action, because that creates the outcome. So whenever we're doing that Gemini doingness, what is the intention behind the doing? Are we doing it just so we can get it finished and get to the next thing and then the next thing and the next thing? Or are we doing it with love and attention and gratitude for the fact that we can actually do it? What she wants us to focus on is the intention behind an action, because that changes the outcome. She's a sacred prophetic sign that we can receive what we need without fighting for it or trying to secure it through manipulation. When prayer joins right action, when we move from the intention of creating only more love, then abundance is inevitable. And we're talking about abundance in the biggest sense here, not particularly only aligned with money. Abundance on every level. You only have to look at a tree to see the abundance that's around us. And when we seek not just for ourselves, but also for the benefit of our loved ones and our community, our needs are divinely met, not through necessarily just doing. Yes, we show up and we do what we need to do, but when we're actually doing it in a heart-based way, there's a natural flow of energy that comes back. The most sacred path is the one abundant with love. So her soul voice meditation is, what is my intention for the work that I'm currently doing? It's a good question to ask. Why are you doing the work that you do? Whether that's work in the home, whether it's work in the corporate world, whether it's your own business, whether it's just your daily work that you do, cutting wood, carrying water. What is your intention? Are you trying to get somewhere else? Are you trying to find a peace by doing that? Or are you just doing it for the sake of doing it? I'm doing this because I can and because this is what I'm doing. What is my intention? So it's a good one. What is my intention for the work I'm currently doing? And again, my heart is a compass. The path of love is true abundance. It's beautiful. So I hope that helps to bring some clarity to these foggy, slightly misty times. If you like this reading and this update, please press the notification button and the subscribe button, and I'd love to hear your comments as well. It's wonderful to get comments, and if you think it's helpful, you could also share it. It helps to get the word out. We're all in this together, and we all signed up for this. So let's stand together in love. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for watching. Much love.